Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. So we've been following two things with great interest. Number one is Tuesday's gubernatorial election in Virginia. Very important race. It's Democrat Terry McAuliffe against absolutely radical, outrageous, extremist Republican Glenn Youngkin. And not only is that an important race for Virginia, keeping Virginia blue, but it's at least being theorized is important, maybe in terms of how it would affect the politics of the area, including neighboring West Virginia and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin's willingness to concede more. Or there's all these different ways in which it's important, but it's a very important race. Number two, we've been following the new trend. I think at this point it's a trend of Republicans saying, if we don't win, it's rigged. If we don't win, it's rigged. We saw this with the 2020 presidential election. And we'll look at some other examples. Republicans are already claiming fraud in the Virginia gubernatorial election. They're already doing it.
Fraud.
Exactly. They are now saying it sounds like we're hearing that Democrats are already cheating. We're going to look at a video now of the Virginia Republican State Senator Amanda Chase. She was interviewed on Real America's Voice outside the Beltway the day before yesterday, I believe it was. And she says Democrats are cheating. They're already cheating. Folks, they're doing it every race now ahead of time. Democrats are already cheating unless we win. If we win, we won despite the cheating. If we lose, we lost because of the cheating. Take a look.
I'm all about fighting for the truth, too. And sometimes, unfortunately, we can't always rely on the media. I wanted to go there. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to see it. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I know how Democrats are cheating.
Right.
And that
already. We don't even have any votes counted yet.
Information has been given to the Youngkin campaign.
They're going to try to do it in Fairfax County.
Absolutely. I'm already getting reports today that people are going to vote. And they have never done a mail-in ballot, ever.
Wow. Is that even legal?
Yet when they went to cast their ballot, they were told, no, we've already mailed you a mail-in ballot. And so we're already looking into that.
So again, those are assertions about which there could be multiple different explanations. It is not evidence of cheating. It is not evidence of fraud. And it's not evidence that it's Democrats that are doing anything. That could, even if true, that could be happening to the same number of Democrats and Republicans. It's 3 layers of nonsense.
So that's why we told everybody in Virginia, vote early, so that couldn't happen. The earlier you voted, they couldn't do it.
Did you notice that? Now it's now the right is saying vote as early as you possibly can. So this is the new thing. Between the 2020 presidential and the California gubernatorial recall, we said this is what they're going to do all the time. They did it with the California gubernatorial recall. Remember when Larry Elder, the Republican candidate, was asked the day before the election, will you commit to accepting the results? And he wouldn't. We knew they were going to do it there as well.
Larry Elder, the leading Republican candidate, would not commit to accepting the results of the election.
Again, whether or not you win or lose, will you accept the results of the election tomorrow?
Right.
I think we all ought to be looking at election integrity, no matter whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican. Let's all make sure that the election is a fair election. So let's all work together, no matter what the results are, to make sure that the results are valid and legitimate.
So you won't.
And everybody who voted should have voted. Let's all do that together.
Is that a commitment to accept the results of the election tomorrow?
Let's all do that together. Let's all work together on both sides of the aisle to make sure that the election is a fair election.
And so he didn't say he would accept the results. Donald Trump did the exact same thing a few days earlier before the California gubernatorial recall on Newsmax. I think this was on Newsmax, saying it's all rigged. It's all rigged. The Democrats are cheating.
Well, it's probably rigged. They're sending out all ballots. It's all the ballots are, mail out, mail in ballots. In fact, I guess you even have a case where you can make your own ballot.
I made one on construction paper with crayons.
When that happens, nobody's going to win except these Democrats. So, look, they're very good. The one thing they're good at is rigging elections. So I predict it's a rigged election. Let's see how it turns out.
So that was ahead of the California gubernatorial recall. Of course, Gavin Newsom won by such insane numbers that it became difficult to claim that it was actually rigged. But they still did it. So this is the move now. This is the move. And the first step is Terry McAuliffe has to win Virginia. And Tuesday night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, maybe a little bit before, I will be doing live election results of what is happening there, as well as the New Jersey election. We've got some mayoral elections in different parts of the country of consequence, a lot of different things. That's step one. Number two is really thinking about the long-term impact of this, that they are now using if they didn't like the results or they predict they might not win. It was rigged, it was stolen, etc. Not only because of the systemic risk that it presents in terms of just denouncing irrationally the basic institutions of democracy in the United States, but it could lead to a sort of boy who cried wolf situation where at a certain point they actually rig an election and steal it. And when we point it out, they can come in and say, guys, we've been calling out rigged elections for years and you never paid attention until now, because you know they'll do it if given that opportunity. So concerning for a number of reasons, they're doing it in Virginia as well. This is interesting. The former Fox News host, Eric Bolling, now is a host on Newsmax. He recently condemned Fox News for requiring vaccination or testing. Media Matters covered this, and it's very interesting because of Eric Balling's history with Fox News, which we're going to get to. So let's actually just get right to the clip. Here's Eric Balling condemning the vaccination policy of his former employer.
I don't need Neil Cavuto to tell me what I should be doing for vaccinations. I can do that for myself.
Now, we've covered the Neil Cavuto thing. If you don't know what he's talking about, Neil Cavuto is like the lone voice on Fox News saying, please get vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. Cavuto got COVID despite being vaccinated. He's immunocompromised. He has multiple sclerosis. He had heart surgery, etc. Okay, so Eric Balling's going after Cavuto.
I tell my audience that I'm vaccinated, but I'm against the mandate part of it. Fox says, and Neil Cavuto says, you know, we're against mandates too, but Fox itself has a mandate. You can't get into 1200 6th Avenue unless you are vaccinated or you're willing to take a test every day. And by the way, that means all those cameramen, all those lighting people, all those sound people can't do their job. So in essence,
it actually doesn't mean that. It actually means that everybody is safer because they've either been vaccinated or tested.
Since it's just as onerous as the vaccine mandate that de Blasio has. But yet you won't hear that. Look, Sean Hannity is one of my closest friends in the world, and he calls it straight.
That's a red flag.
Tucker sometimes has issues, but people like Cavuto who's telling me that I should be vaccinated and then turns around and says, you know, we're against vaccine mandates, yet his own company, and Neil's an executive vice president of Fox, but his own company demands that of the other employees.
What gymnastics? Balling's like, I'm vaccinated and I'm for vaccination, and so's Cavuto, but Cavuto shouldn't be saying it on the air to other people.
Not the Neil Cavutos of the world, but the producers, the associate producers, the camera people. There are a lot of people who are bound by a vaccine mandate that they're going to have to take. Otherwise, they're going to get likely fired because they're not doing their job.
Well, or you can get tested, right? He already said.
And then the other issue of this whole idea of we're against the woke culture. They blasted Major League Baseball for moving the All-Star game. Well, that was until they held the All-Star game and Big Fox, broadcast the All-Star game. I haven't really heard them do it this time around because guess where the World Series is being played? It's being played, half the games are being played in Atlanta. Well, I'm not hearing a lot of the pushback for baseball.
If you're thinking he sounds like a disgruntled former employee, you may be onto something.
Broadcast on Fox.
And I would like to see, Eric,
it's in my own employer, but and I just want to make this clear. I'm not taking unfair shots at Fox. I'm just calling it like that, like it is. See, I would say the same thing about CNN and MSNBC, but they clearly admit.
Yeah. So listen, I hate to make this about Eric Balling personally, but that word salad made such little sense that I'm wondering if he's just mad that Fox News got rid of him for these horrifying allegations against him. You can see the whole story. It's well documented and sourced, even just on Wikipedia. It was reported that on a bunch of occasions, Eric Balling sent lewd text messages and pictures to 3 female colleagues at Fox News and Fox Business. He made inappropriate comments to employees. The article, this was reported by Huffington Post, and then a former Fox News guest, Caroline Heldman, said, he made sexual advances against me that were unwanted as well. Balling denied it. He was then suspended from Fox News pending an investigation. A law firm was brought in for the investigation. And then Baldwin filed an intent to sue over that. He never actually ended up suing over the initial Huffington Post article. The Huffington Post stood by the article. Ultimately, Baldwin was ousted from Fox News, and the report was that it was all amicable, but it is not clear that it was. I hate to make it a personal thing and that this is just a grievance that Eric Baldwin has against his former employer, but what he said doesn't really make any sense. It makes no sense at all. It actually makes perfect sense what Fox News is doing in order to reduce the likelihood of people being out because of COVID. It's bad for a business if people have to call out sick. It makes sense to say you got to be vaccinated or test out. They are going above and beyond what Joe Biden recommended. So very, very strange segment. Baldwin definitely seems to have a major issue with his former employer. I'd probably be disgruntled too, but what he's saying doesn't make any sense at all. Let me know your thoughts. You can find me on Twitter at @dpacman. Hell of a show for you today. One of our sponsors is Blinkist, who's been supporting the David Pakman Show longer than any other sponsor. Blinkist is the app that lets you listen to or read an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. Blinkist is the way to absorb those books you can't make time for. Blinkist takes top nonfiction titles, pulls out the book's key takeaways and insights, and gives it to you in the form of a text or audio explainer that you can consume in 15 minutes. With Blinkist, now you actually do have time to learn about all the things you've been wanting to tackle. On the Blinkist app, I just listened to This Is Your Mind on Plants by the great Michael Pollan. Super interesting, the history of caffeine and so many other things. Blinkist has you covered on podcasts too. Blinkist takes long episodes of popular podcasts and distills them into audio you can listen to in 15 minutes. With Blinkist, you can become knowledgeable about so many different things. You can have conversations with people about more topics. Blinkist makes you more well-rounded. Try Blinkist for free and get 25% off a subscription. Go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. The link is down below. Remember that you can sign up in mere moments at joinpakman.com for a David Pakman Show membership. It comes with great perks, commercial-free audio and video streams of the show every day, weekdays. We take weekends off. The award-winning bonus show, priority on viewer town halls, so many different things. Sign up at joinpakman.com. Let's hear from people in the audience. We are going to take some calls via Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. Last week brought us an almost unblemished slate of calls, both from a content standpoint and an audio quality standpoint, and we're going to try to keep that going this week. Let's go next to Eric from Cancun. Eric, you are on the air.
Hi, David.
How are you?
Nice to call you. I'm sorry if I took the top color title because that's how you called me last time we talked. And also, many of the viewers liked the last time we talked. And I talked to my relatives and friends about it. And here's what I'm thinking now. Do you think it would be better to deduct taxes through charities than paying IRS directly? Because I do it because to support the charities and the causes I do care about, and because I would not totally trust the politicians with what they do with their money. In the money of each one's country.
Eric, let me see if I understand. You're saying instead of paying taxes to the IRS, just donate money to charities instead?
Mostly because it's to support the charities I do care about, and also because I'd like some trust in the politicians.
No, I understand, Eric. I don't need you to. I'm just asking, am I understanding correctly what you said? You're saying instead of taxes to the IRS, donate to charity.
Mostly, don't entirely only deduct to charities, but I do that because I would not trust much in politicians.
No, I understand, Eric. I don't need you to I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So Who pays for the roads if instead of taxes we donate to charity?
Mm, um, I would say that you should pay some taxes to IRS, but mostly to charities.
Okay.
That's
All
also
right,
to
Eric, thank you for the call. I very much appreciate it. Let's go next to Ryan from New York. Ryan, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. So
Pleasure.
I just had a quick question regarding something that was said to me. It's becoming American national, and it's not, I think it has something to do with the Sovereign movement, and I'm not sure if you had already put up any content on this stuff, but I wanted to see if you had heard about it and what your take was on that.
Wait a second. So it's a movement called American National?
Yes, I think it's called like becoming an American national. You denounce your citizenship from the United States.
Oh, and it's part of the
yeah.
sovereign citizen movement. Yeah, I've heard about. I'm not familiar with this one in particular. I've heard about these before. If people want to see something really entertaining, check out my interview a long time ago with a guy named David Wynn Miller, who believed that by adding elements of punctuation to your name, like extraneous semicolons and dashes, you became a non-taxable sort of like sovereign person and didn't owe any taxes to the government. None of this stuff ever holds up legally. So I know that there's people who want to do it, but courts will still drag you in and they'll still send you to jail. I mean, it's a really wacky movement. And unfortunately, it's not only benign because sometimes they get violent.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. I'll definitely check out that interview.
You're not thinking of becoming a sovereign citizen, are you, Ryan?
I am not.
Okay.
No,
All right. Good. Yeah. I don't think it's good for anyone's career, family life, or overall well-being.
No. Yeah. I was like I just talked to some people, and that seems to be where their heads at. They say that the United States, we were unlawfully converted into citizens, and,
right?
All these different things. So I was just kind of wondering because I don't really subscribe to that mindset, but I
Right.
sometimes don't really know what to say to them. So I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess often it's a lot of the counterpoints are similar to when libertarians just say taxes or slavery and you never agreed to them. It's sort of like, okay, well, so how did you end up in this country? And somebody might say, well, I was born here. And then you would say, okay, so your parents decided to birth you in this country, right? And they'd say, yeah. It's like, okay, well, do you believe in parental custody until kids are 18? And it's like, if you do, then your parents decided for you. They opted you in by choosing to birth you in the United States. And then they might say, well, but my parents didn't choose to be citizens of the United States. And then you just go up and eventually it's someone who moved to the US. So then it's like, okay, so they knowingly came to the United States knowing that they would be subject to the laws here, right? So they chose, and then the next generation chose to have a kid. You know, it's so boring, but it's like, that's the kind of way you've got to deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. No problem. There's Ryan. Yeah, those movements will rot your brain. It's good to be very, very careful. Let's go next to, how about Magnus from Norway? Magnus, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Just barely, Magnus. I'm going to pump up your volume as much as I can.
Wait, let me try first on my
Wow.
settings.
You're barely audible.
Yeah, wait a second here. Why is it so low? Is it possible to try again a little bit later?
Yeah, you know, if you speak up, I've pumped you up 200%, so maybe we can hear you if you have a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what do you think about privatization of electricity?
Privatization of electricity. So are you talking about the generation or the distribution?
I guess you can say both.
I have no reason to think it's something we should do. Why would we want to do it, I guess?
I don't know, like, the reason I don't know if I'm pro or anything, but like, I feel like it would help reducing the price of electricity in homes and stuff. Like, for instance, in Norway, we have had some increase in the cost of electricity.
Yeah.
Because as my mother says, she says that it's because of the EU that we have to increase the prices of like water, for instance. But I'm like, if we just privatize it, wouldn't it like decrease the prices of
It's not obvious to me that it would. You know, I can only speak to the United States, but in the United States, electricity is quite regulated, and different states have different configurations. But one argument would be open competition, and then it will reduce the price. But the other side of it would be actually it would actually increase the price once you make it a for-profit model. Now, in some states where there's been deregulation, you can change your electricity supplier. You can shop around. But the complexity with electricity is the delivery. The delivery is still happening by one company, because otherwise you need, if you want to change power company, you need different power lines. And that's very complicated to have each company run its own power lines. So if you concede that the delivery needs to be based on one infrastructure, you then start to kind of have a little bit of a question mark around what benefit there really is to opening it up in the way that you're suggesting. So I'm just not sure about that.
Well, thanks for answering at least.
My pleasure. Magnus from Norway. Thank you so much for the call. Let's go next to Benjamin from Seattle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Benjamin.
So, longtime listener, I actually have to moderate watching you on YouTube, so I'm not too much of an echo chamber.
Good.
Because I agree with you a lot. Minor question with both regarding Donald Trump. Since he was commander in chief, could he be court-martialed regarding January 6th? And would that be better legally speaking?
I don't believe so. I think, commander in chief refers to the fact that ultimately the president of the United States is the commander in chief of the U.S. military, but the president is a civilian in charge of the U.S. military. And I do not believe they would be subject to a court-martial.
Right. My main question is, did Donald Trump really accomplish anything? And that I mean that some of the things that are considered part of his administration, like conservative Supreme Court justice, is really Mitch McConnell.
Right.
Big tax cut, Paul Ryan. And then anything else that he did pretty incompetently, like the Muslim ban was so badly done, it had to go to court several times.
Yeah.
So did he really accomplish anything? Except maybe just to stay out of the way.
He didn't stay out of the way. Trump accomplished many things that were all negative. He humiliated the world on a global stage. He set us behind on climate. Dr. Deborah Birx earlier this week said that Trump's failure on COVID probably led to 30 to 40% more deaths than we otherwise would have needed. So I think you're very much onto something, which is in terms of his campaign promises, Trump did nothing. He did nothing, but he damaged a lot of things. The absurd trade war with China that did not benefit Americans. He did a lot of things that were all bad, but in terms of what you would call political accomplishments, he barely did anything. And it's astute to point that out.
So you mentioned the Chinese trade war. Would you say that some people actually think that's a positive thing, though?
Yeah, I think there are some people who think it is. They tend not to understand what's going on when you actually talk to them a little more deeply, though.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the call. I like getting right to the right to the big substantive topics. Let's get to Taylor from Atlanta, Georgia. Taylor, you're on the air.
Hey, David, am I coming in okay?
You're coming in okay. Yeah, let's keep going and see how it holds.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I've got the nod of bad call disapproval before, so let me try to fix this.
Please.
But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the trends of childhood vaccinations in the world that's going on right now. I think we've walked back a little bit based on the COVID vaccine and just general childhood vaccines other than COVID, and what you're thinking is going on.
I'm not sure I know what you mean. You're saying, are there just more vaccine hesitant people when it comes to their kids globally right now as a result of the COVID vaccine debate?
Yes. I think childhood vaccines have been a pretty common thing, and not giving a child a vaccine has never been questioned as hard as it is now.
Yeah, is there any reason to think that the COVID vaccine debate is impacting other vaccination? I mean, there have been these anti-MMR enclaves for a decade or more. I've not seen any evidence that suggests beyond the debate about this vaccine that there's a bigger anti-vax trend for kids going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a slight decline. I think WHO has put out a brief report on it. But that's been going on since before COVID.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Usually these metrics take a little bit of time. Like, you can't really look at 2021 just yet.
I mean, listen, I think in the long term, it is going to remain clear that vaccination has been one of the greatest accomplishments of Homo sapiens for extending life and preventing death. I think there's a lot of anti-vax madness in the US right now, but I think that's the long arc of vaccination.
Yeah, great. I completely agree. I personally have, I work in that realm. I've personally seen children die from these vaccine preventable diseases, and it's horrible. So yeah. I hope that continues, how you're saying.
You and me both. Yeah, I'm optimistic it will. Cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
All right. Thanks very much for the call. I appreciate it. We're going to take a very short break. If you're holding, don't hang up, because we are going to get right back to the phones momentarily. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. All right, let's take a few more calls from great people in the audience. You can chat with me, chat in a real sense, in audio visual, or I guess just audio, via Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. Let's go. Oh, I don't know. How about Daniel from Alhambra?
How are you, David?
I'm doing well.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Long-time member, first-time caller.
Thank you.
Just wanted to point out, the Colin Powell death, it didn't take Republicans very long to, get political with his death. Republicans tend to, after a mass shooting or something like that, they tend not to want to get too political about
right.
the issue.
This is not a time to politicize tragedy, they say.
Right. And same with Alec Baldwin, the unfortunate situation there. I just thought it was kind of funny that, the Republican, the right-wingers didn't waste any time politicizing.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. What would it take, what type of, or what percentage of audience membership would it take to get David Pakman to have a person go out to rallies and do kind of on the spot coverage of some of these events?
That's a beautiful question. That's a beautiful question. I would love that. I think that, we talk about how we estimate that somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of the total audience are paid members. I think if we were able to get to 2%, we could hire a full-time person to just go to these wacky rallies, protests, and political events and do really, really good interviews and that type of thing. That would be a really exciting thing, actually.
Yeah, I would love it. I mean, I've been watching, or I've been a member since your brother was on the show.
Wow.
Was his name.
Yeah.
So challenge accepted. Audience, if you're listening out there, let's get on board and get someone out on the road to cover some of these events for
absolutely,
Mr. David here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
All right, very good. Yeah, that's it. I love that idea. That's a tremendous idea, actually. Okay, Why don't we, let's talk to someone else, right? I mean, why not? Let's go to the state of Texas and talk to Quincy from Texas. Quincy, you're on the air.
Oh, gosh. Damn, I didn't expect to get on. Okay. Well, anyways, I was sort of curious. I have a very difficult time sort of empathizing with, like, the viewpoints of conservatives.
Okay.
It just seems like, the more you take a more empirical view on the world, the more you learn about history, you just can't sign off to a lot of these things that, like, conservatives worry about. Like, they worry about, like not changing race policy, even though we have, like, a history of basically oppressing races, right? Like, I just think that conservatism is just like dumb overall.
Okay.
And that it just doesn't.
It sounds like you're losing patience. You're losing patience for ignorance and stupidity. It sounds like.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I just feel like it's the less intelligent position, and that, like, it's not really set to, like, stand the course of time, really.
Well, here's what I would say to that, without, like, arguing or debating the merits of because this is it's a very surface level argument. Conservatives are just dumb. Let's skip the argument. I think my response to you would be, hey, you know what? Just calling people dumb, whether they are or aren't, probably isn't really going to achieve the change that we want. And so we need to think of what we can do. Like, let's say maybe that's true, or maybe they're not dumb, but they're just wrong, or whatever, right? Either way, we need to find some way to realize and deal with the fact that these folks are a big part of American society, and we have problems to solve regardless. And how can we actually do it? And it's not by just calling them dumb. So I think I would take, like, a more pragmatic approach.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Are you clicking a pen, or what is that noise? Are you clicking a pen open and shut?
It's a butterfly knife.
You're opening and closing a knife. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, good. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. Let's continue to think about this issue. I think that there's a lot to it. And the only caller I'm aware of that was doing knife play during a phone call that we had. Let's go next to Mike, the new dad. Mike, the new dad, is on the air. Mike?
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How you doing, man?
Good. Congratulations on being a new dad.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I appreciate you kind of covering the Pete Buttigieg thing and sort of trying to normalize paternity leave for new dads. I kind of thought it was a bit of a joke, but being a new dad and actually being on it, I found it quite beneficial since my wife kind of wrapped up her maternity leave, and I've had this time to bond with my daughter.
Do you get paid paternity leave, or you're just allowed to take time off but unpaid?
Yeah, no, it's paid. So if you live or work in the state of New York, basically how it works is the state will cover 60% of your pay. But a new policy like my company had this year is they just give you 100% of your pay and benefits while you're out on paternity leave. So it's a total of 12 weeks. So it works out to be 3 months, and you just have to use it within the first year of your child, the date your child's born. So you could take it in 2-week increments all at once, however you kind of want to split it up. But essentially, like my company, actually, I found out is only, like, even though they're giving me 100% of my pay, they're only responsible for the remaining 40%.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Are they just matching up to that last 40%? Yeah.
Yeah. So they just match up to the last 40%. So, I mean, it's interesting that more companies kind of don't do it. Like if you work for a bigger business, considering they're only on the hook for the remaining 40%. And I mean, I'm not an accountant, but I'm sure there's some way that they're going to be able to write off some of that with me not technically working. But yeah.
And how much sleep are you getting? Oh, boy. You just cut out, Mike, unfortunately. It sounded like you were trying to answer, but you just completely cut out. Oh, boy. All right, Mike, congratulations. It sounds like the connection is degenerating very, very quickly. So we're going to... Congratulations, and I hope that the answer to how much sleep you're getting is a lot. I hope it's a lot. Let's go next to Paul Garcia from Mexico.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't know. I guess I just wanted your thoughts on a good book, like good politics book that teach me like background from conservatives and new ground for progressives to cover.
That's a great question. I don't read any political books, so I'm like the worst person to ask because I get so much politics in my job. I read history, I read technology, I read
Do you have a
narrative.
good history book like France Revolution or something like that?
French Revolution? No, I really don't know. French Revolution, I don't know. What I would do for all these things, if you just Google best book about the French Revolution, I guarantee you will find great recommendations.
Yeah, I've looked at a few because they say the French Revolution kickstart the whole revolution thing in the world. I just find it interesting. I just wanted to know. I'm just listening. That was my only question.
Okay. ¿De qué parte de México eres?
De Chihuahua.
Ah, Chihuahua.
¿Has
Very
estado
nice.
acá alguna vez?
No, nunca.
Muy bonito. Chihuahua está bien. Ahorita está frío, pero
¿Hace
muy rica
frío?
la comida acá.
¿Cuánto frío?
Aquí sí. Está como 18, digamos, unos...
Well, that's like 67
56.
degrees. That's not
Yeah.
bad. No, 18 is like 66 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
That's not bad. That's not bad for almost November.
Well, yeah, that's the city, Chihuahua. But I
Right.
live in a town apart.
Okay.
It's like 16, 14 Celsius.
Okay, got it. Where did you learn English?
It's colder. My whole life, I have taken English from preschool, elementary, and middle school, high school.
Wow. Well, you speak excellent English, my friend.
Well, thank you. I really was fishing for that.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.
Keep the good work.
Thank you. There's Paul Garcia from Chihuahua in Mexico. Love it. Why don't we speak to, there's a lot of, the phone lines are packed today. It's actually crazy what's going on. Why don't we go to Ryan from Newfoundland? Ryan from Newfoundland, you're on the air, my friend. Last chance, Ryan from Newfoundland, to unmute yourself. All right, that's too bad. I was really hoping to hear from that. Let's try Nicholas from Switzerland, one of my favorite countries. Nicholas from Switzerland.
Hey, I'm glad you're doing fine.
Thank you.
So, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Where in Switzerland are you calling from?
I'm calling from Zurich.
Oh, I love Zurich. I love Zurich. What a great city.
The canton Zurich. Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
So, I've been watching your channel and other US politics news for some years now.
Sure.
And what I've noticed is that getting anything progressive to progress is almost impossible. I feel like anything good is almost impossible to get through
Yes.
into legislation.
And it feels like we're always talking about the same things, and it's like, can we get them done? Or if we're clearly getting nothing done if we keep asking for the same things, right?
Yes, exactly. And so what I was wondering, recently I went to a job interview, and they asked me, where do I see myself in like 20 years?
Okay.
And I thought about it, and I thought it was really hard. But I wanted to ask you, where do you see the US in 20 years? In terms of progressive policies and social changes?
I think that, number one, things change so quickly. And number two, humans are terrible at predicting things, that I don't even waste time thinking about something like that. It's sort of like when people say, where do you imagine your show will be in 5 years? I say, I have no idea. I have a plan for this year and I have a plan for next year. And 5 years ago, if anyone, and people did say, where do you see the show in 5 years? Nothing I imagined is actually what's going on right now. So here's what I would say. Even though we're generally always talking about the same things, we've got to raise the minimum wage, we've got to provide health care, we've got to reduce income inequality, we've got to deal with the environment. When you look year by year or over a few years, things are happening. The minimum wage is going up, although too slowly. More people have health care today than have in a long time, although not nearly enough, and it's not affordable enough. We are getting closer to getting off of gasoline-powered vehicles and closer to electric. So I think it's very easy to get really bummed out because we aren't going quickly enough. I agree. But there is also progress being made. 20 years, it's too long to make any reasonable prediction. It would be of no value for me to predict.
Okay. And do you think, like, over time, Congress will get more or less functional?
That's a really good question. I worry it will not get more functional. Let's put it that way. It might not be less functional, but I'm worried it's not going to get any more functional anytime soon. That's a prediction I'm willing to make.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me.
How's the weather in Zurich these days?
It's getting cold, really, but it's nice. Yeah, we have clear skies all day. And yeah, except for the temperature, it's perfect.
How cold does it get in winter in Zurich, like in January?
Oh, it really depends on the year, but not that cold. Like in the morning, it would get like minus 7 maybe.
Okay, minus 7 Celsius.
Celsius, yeah. We don't do imperial here.
And how much snow do you guys get?
Oh, that also really depends. I mean, luckily in Switzerland, you can always go to like Graubünden or Wallis and go into the mountains and go skiing there. There's almost snow all year there, and during the winter for sure. But here in Zurich, it really depends on the year. Sometimes we never get snow. Sometimes we get snow like all year.
Right.
But if it can go from like 5 centimeters up to like 30 was, I think, the max we ever had here.
For the entire season or per storm?
No. It's there would be like one big snowstorm, and it would snow for a couple of days, and there would be like 10 centimeters for maybe a month.
Got it. Well, it's do you like living in Switzerland? I've enjoyed my time there so much.
Yeah, I mean it's really great here. I mean, standard of living is like outstanding, of course, and we have school has been great for me. I've enjoyed so many opportunities to do whatever I wanted to do. Yeah, I really like it here.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on living in Switzerland, and I really appreciate the call.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good. There's Nicholas from Switzerland. All right, that's all the time I have for today. We'll take a break. We'll get to your emails momentarily, and we will take live calls again very soon. Before you know it, we'll be speaking again. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the Daily Bonus Show, the commercial-free Daily Show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. All right, let's get into this week's mailbag. You can email info@davidpakman.com to participate. Please don't abuse that email address. We'll just block it. We have many people whose emails are filtered directly into the trash because they email us too much, or into a folder we keep in case law enforcement ever asks for emails from people. Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. Maybe stories to tell someday about that. No, but in all seriousness, don't abuse it. Okay, info@davidpakman.com. Let's jump right into our first email. First email is from Alexander, who says, I'll just get to the point. You are a loser and always will be. Lost in space, sleepy Joe Biden and his administration opened the eyes of so many that voted for him by all of his screw ups since taking office, and now realize what a stupid mistake it was to have believed the lies of his campaign message. 2024 is just around the corner, and once again, America will be great again under the leadership of President Donald Trump. I disagree with the characterization of what Trump's leadership would be, but I don't for a second take issue with the very real possibility that Donald Trump will be president again. This country is dumb enough to do it again. They were dumb enough to do it once when it was obvious it would be a disaster, and it was. And they are clearly eager to do it again. So it's going to come down, as it often does, to turnout. There will be, no matter what Trump does between now and 2024, other than maybe die, and even then they might still put him on the ballot and vote for him. No matter what Trump does between now and 2024, there will be tens of millions of people, just like the guy who emailed me, who will gleefully vote for another 4 years of that insanity. So we need to be prepared. I disagree it'll be great, but the emailer is absolutely right. You very well could see Trump again in 2024. And that's a very scary, scary thing. Here's another very aggressive message. I'm going to read it as written. OK, and yeah. Well, gay Jews boy. Ever thought that the man you hate so much is the peacemaker in the Middle East, ye Trump? No, you are so full of hate, and beside that, so stupid not to see what this dementia Joe Biden is doing to the USA. Never a single word from you about the laptop full of sex with underage girls, the money scam for the big man. From the Ukraine, flying the Air Force One, the private deal made. The Biden family is the most big crime family ever in the White House. Then he cannot speak one good word after the other, one great disaster. So tell me, boy, how on earth can you put up with this and saying nothing about it? Just get the news from more good Democrats' friends that Walmart closed 22 stores in the left-wing California. Why? Because people can riot and looting the stores and would not get arrested. Yes, under Biden, this will harm the whole USA, but you keep silent about this. Gas prices up, food $2 down. Yes, gay boy, that's where you voted for. But because you can, no better will not talk about this, but hang out with the Trump old story. Happy day, boy, all the best. We know you need it, Fritz de With. Yeah. Next email. Okay. Austin wrote to me about Republican hypocrisy on comorbidities. David, I saw your recent segment on Tucker reporting on Colin Powell's death. I found it very interesting that for the duration of the pandemic, Republicans were constantly talking about how COVID deaths are overstated and many people are dying from other causes. For some reason, that all seemed to go right out the window when Colin Powell died. Now it's certainly a COVID death, implying Powell wasn't already immunocompromised and had apparently nothing to do with the other ailments he was suffering from. Of course, as you stated, this is just has everything to do with undermining the vaccine. Yeah, it is funny where before, anytime anybody died of COVID, supposedly, it was like, no. They didn't really die of COVID. They were killed by doctors at hospitals. We covered that one. They died from a car accident, but then they were just tested for COVID. And because they had it, it counts as a COVID death. They were marked as a COVID death so the hospital could make more money, etc. Now, Colin Powell dies of COVID. Oh, look at that. It's absolutely COVID. Yeah, the skepticism, again, this is because none of these are their values or their actual underlying beliefs. It's just, what can we say today to make the point we're already determined to make? That's quite simply what it is. And it's a very good point. Nobody's saying, hey, you know what? We've been saying for a year and a half, when someone supposedly dies of COVID, we should be skeptical. With Colin Powell, nobody's skeptical. Now, he died of COVID, no question whatsoever. Biden's Christmas. Paul wrote to me saying, David, sir, does it not seem odd that the people most worried that Christmas will be ruined by supply chain issues are essentially admitting not only that Christmas is not primarily a celebration of the birth of Christ, but that it is also a custom built upon the giving of Chinese-made goods? I am not religious, but what happened to Christ is the reason for the season? What happened to Buy American? Right-wing audiences can be convinced of the exact opposite of what they espouse. Very bizarre stuff. Yeah, this is sort of like another example of you've got their stated principles and then you've got their actions when the principles no longer correspond with the point they want to make. There's an attack on Christianity, and it's all about Jesus and religiosity, and we should buy American because we're Republicans. Uh-oh. We're having problems with Chinese supply chains. That's going to ruin Christmas. No mention of Jesus. No mention of Buy American. Just it's Joe Biden's fault that we're not going to be able to get our Chinese toys. Same analysis as before. That none of the things I don't know that they believe any of the things they say. They'll use them to make political points if it's so convenient, and that's about as far as it goes. Really good message about the Dennis Prager thing. We talked last week about how Dennis Prager tested positive for COVID and he's taking 5 medications and he said he wanted to test positive for it. Joe from Virginia wrote in and said, hey, David, do people like Dennis Prager not see the irony in wanting to catch COVID in order to develop natural immunity? They want to catch the virus in order to develop antibodies so that they're less likely to catch it again in the future. It makes no sense. Why not just never catch it in the first place? It's like if I told you I could hit you with a car today, and in exchange, your chance of being hit by a car in the future will be reduced. Reasonable people would decline being hit with the car at all. Getting vaccinated in this scenario. Prager's logic, if it can even be called logic, makes it seem like he'd take on the car. Yeah, this is something we've been talking about for a while. We want to get COVID, get everybody sick so that then you're protected in the future. Right, but millions of people would die with the herd immunity approach. Why not just avoid catching it? If only there was something that could reduce our chance of catching it. And of course, that something is the vaccine. They just make no sense. There was a time, and maybe it to some degree still applies, although I don't know enough about it. Before there was any chickenpox vaccine, there would be the idea of you get your kids together so that they pass chickenpox and you get it out of the way, because getting chickenpox as an adolescent or an adult or shingles, it can be really, really, really bad. So that's something that used to go on like when my parents were kids. Even when I was a kid, it was already not being done that I'm aware of. But what Dennis Prager is saying, it's like, I want to get the virus to have a lower chance of getting it in the future. Well, why not just get the vaccine and reduce your chance of getting it at all and try to avoid it? It seems more logical. By the way, particularly when, remember Vincent Racaniello, one of the top virologists in the U.S. from Columbia University, we interviewed him and he said it would be expected, generally speaking, the trajectory over time would be that the coronavirus, the COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 gets less serious over time. So there's really not an advantage to getting it now. Very, very strange stuff, but none of what they're doing makes sense. Riley wrote to me about a teacher wearing a Star of David in protest of the vaccine, saying, hey, David, I thought this might catch your interest. A Berendos middle school teacher in Red Bluff, California, posted this video comparing the Holocaust to the vaccine mandate. Just to add to the cringe, she cut out a Star of David and asks followers to pin them on their shirts as part of her protest. She took down the original post due to the outrage and reposted the same message, this time with a blue star. Yeah, I saw the original video with the yellow star, and then I saw a subsequent video where the same teacher then did a video with a blue star, because apparently the yellow star, a lot of people said, you're trivializing the Holocaust, again, like so many of these anti-vaxxers have done. In fact, last week I told you about a report that looked at COVID conspiracies pushing people either overtly or sort of in a more below the radar way towards anti-Semitism, trivialization of the Holocaust through false equivalencies between concentration camps and vaccine requirements by employers and schools that was listed as one of those things. And I did see the video. I'm not going to play it, but you can certainly find it if you are interested. Liz wrote to me about a weird new Republican conspiracy. Liz says, hey, David, I've been hearing an argument being made by some of my right-wing friends that I'm having trouble connecting with any factual reference point. Shocker, I know. But I try to understand what frightens the right, and I can't figure out where this one came from. They seem convinced lately that the government is monitoring any transactions over $600 in our private bank accounts. Where is this talking point coming from? Is it true? I have not heard anything about this, so I don't even know how to remotely deal with this as an argument against supposed government overreach. So here's my suspicion about where that comes from. There was one point at which the false rumor was being spread that the $600 stimulus from, I believe, the Trump era, the $600 COVID stimulus, was it 600? That it was going to be taxed as income. So you get money from the government, then you pay taxes on it. Now, it wasn't true. If you got $600 from the government, you were supposed to report it on your taxes. And then in a separate part, you're asked, did you get COVID stimulus? You put yes, and you put in the amount and you get a credit. So it offsets. It's just reporting, right? It doesn't change your taxable income. I say, on the one hand, here's $600 I received. On the other hand, here's a credit. That $600 is deductible. It zeroes out. OK, I wonder if the government is monitoring transactions over $600 is somehow related to the previous false rumor that the COVID stimulus money would be taxable. I don't know. And this is a funny thing. Every day there's a new one of these. And sometimes we know where it comes from. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes, hilariously or tragically, these come from just misunderstanding some other false conspiracy delusion. So I don't know, but my suspicion is it has something to do with the false claim that the COVID stimulus money was going to be taxed. Also, lastly today from the mailbag, Andrew wrote to me about hypocrisy and says, hey, David, just want to point out the hypocrisy here. For a party so consumed by statistics and how the 1% that die from COVID isn't a big deal, why are they so concerned about 10,000 Haitians coming to Texas, which is only about 3.5% of Texas's 29 million? Well, and not only that, only a fraction of them would actually stay in Texas, which is another issue. Yeah, listen, Andrew, none of it's logical. None of it's logical. You can try to present empirical data to these folks. It doesn't make a difference. If they've decided it's an invasion of Haitian migrants, as Trump said, who have AIDS, as other Republicans have said, who will, suck the country dry of resources, whatever. If they've convinced themselves of that, no data that you present is going to change their minds. That's fundamentally what it comes down to. And at this point, it shouldn't come as a big shock. We've got a great bonus show planned for you today. There's another show. Every day we do the 1 hour broadcast show podcast. That's this that you're listening to, watching right now, excuse me. And then we do an additional bonus show just for our members. You can sign up at joinpacman.com. Use the coupon code felony21. It's such a big discount. It should be a felony. I think actually Ted Cruz wants to make it one, but we're pushing against that. Big discount, felony21. joinpacman.com. See you on the bonus show. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman.